Hello and welcome to the 15th episode of Planetos Podcast, a podcast dedicated to the fans of George R. R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire and HBO's A Game of Thrones. Spoiler warning, this show will cover all material, including the main series, the Dunk and Egg stories, the novellas, Fire and Blood, The World of Ice and Fire, George's interviews and quotes, and all episodes of the show and its commentaries and bonus material. I'm one of your hosts, Brett. You can find me on Twitter at HomelyPillow.
And I'm your other host, Travis. You can find me at Sarah_Travis on Twitter. We hope you enjoy today's show. So today we return our focus to minor characters. We've previously discussed Orain Waters, Barbary Dustin, and Jason Mallister. Once again, we put it out to you, the fans. We had a poll. You voted. And Mya Stone was the winner. I don't think unsurprisingly. She's a great character that's introduced in the first book. I remember the first time I was reading A Game of Thrones, and I instantly liked Mya Stone, even though she's in it but a few moments. And so we're going to learn a little bit today about King Robert's bastard daughter. So here's the description of Mya in the books. She's described as slim and sinewy, and that's similar to how Stannis is described. Sinewy is kind of lean muscle.
I was about to ask.
Yeah. I knew you were going to ask, so I was preparing for that. She's tall and strapping. She has deep blue eyes, dark black hair, which she keeps cut pretty short. She dresses masculine, choosing leather over dresses. She's about 17, 18 years old in A Game of Thrones. She was born in 279 or 280 AC, and that's 1 or 2 years before Robert's rebellion, while Robert was still a ward of Lord John Arryn of the Vale. Currently, Mya serves House Royce of the Gates of the Moon. She guides climbers on their treacherous ascent from the Vale to the Eyrie. She has a close bond with a train of mules that she uses to ferry men and women and supplies up the Giant's Lance. We don't know who her mother is, but she's referred to as a commoner. I think by Ned Stark, maybe Robert Baratheon. Mya is vigorous and merry. She's sure-footed and skilled in her duties. And she can master the quarrelsome, ornery creatures, the mules, that she has to use on a daily basis. So that's Mya. That's Mya Stone. And if you look at the title of this episode, Mountain's Daughter, that's what she really is. She is at home on this mountain, on the Giant's Lance, on in the Vale, leading up to the Eyrie. And I think she's just a great character.
Do you think some people might be mad when they realize that we're not talking about the Mountain's Daughter, but
I think probably when
but we got it out of the way early, so
we got it out of the way, right? When I was, Brett and I like to come up with some clever titles for our episodes. I think everyone likes to do that, but when I wrote that out, which is something we're going to talk about here in a minute, a quote that she says that really illustrates who she is, what she is. When I wrote that out, I thought, oh man, some people are going to think Gregor Clegane has a daughter and they're going to talk about her. No, it's Mya Stone.
No, I actually, like, when I was going through the drive, the first time I saw the script, I was like, the Mountain's Daughter. And I clicked on it because we had talked about the Mya Stone thing, and you said you were writing up a script. So every few days I'll get on there just to see what's on there. And I was like, what? We're doing a mountain episode? And I was like, oh, okay, it's the Mya Stone episode. So,
all right, so let's talk about her purpose. Why is she in this story, Brett?
I have no idea. I didn't get to do the amount of research I wanted to.
All right,
I got some stuff, but not a whole lot. So I'm going to let you.
All right, so here's why we think she's in this story. She is introduced early on, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And she first comes in a Catelyn POV when they're ascending the mountain to the Eyrie. I think she's probably introduced to prove that the seed is strong. The black hair and blue eyes.
Okay. Yeah.
We know that the Baratheon lineage is central to the plot of the first book. That's obviously what Ned discovers. When you begin to find out that Robert has all these bastards, you then start to see a image of them, and they're all black hair, blue eyes. So I think that's probably the first thing, that she's there to prove the seed is strong, right?
Yeah. Now that you say that, yes. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yes, it makes a lot of sense. Perfect.
Secondly, I think it's to remind us that Robert is promiscuous. And that's probably important for two characters. One, Lyanna Stark. There's a lot of clues laced in the first book about Lyanna and Rhaegar and Jon Snow's mother, etc. And then the world expands greatly. And those clues are still there. They're still there, but it would be important for us to know that one of the reasons that Ned says that Lyanna was worried about marrying Robert was because of what? His history of womanizing. She knew it. She saw it. She more than likely came to the Vale to visit Robert, to visit Ned and Robert as well, and probably saw that firsthand. I would say the second character that the promiscuity is important to is Cersei. It sort of, shows that he's been like this his whole life,
and
right?
Yes, yeah, and then that doubles down on the seed is strong.
Right.
With her children. Yeah.
Right. It points to her children, but it also puts us in the mindset of why Cersei does some of the things she does to Robert. I think it's also there for a third point, and that is to show that Robert was once a good man. The Robert we get in a Game of Thrones is very lazy. He doesn't want to do anything. He doesn't want to rule. He doesn't want to act. He doesn't want to make decisions. Yeah, I mean, now if he's presented with the option to kill a Targaryen, he's ready to act. But even with putting his foot down on for the actions of his children, he just doesn't do anything. And I think this is part of a sadness that is built in. I don't think we find this out until A Feast for Crows, but Maya remembers Robert coming, and it actually might be a Game of Thrones when Ned conveys it, that Robert comes and visits Maya even when he lost interest in her mother, holding her and throwing her up in the air and everything.
I don't know if I'd ever. I mean, he's always wanted to fight and fuck. That's what he did. But
I was just getting ready to say that I know what you're saying. I don't think Robert is a good man or a bad man. I think Robert just wants to
be loved,
fight, and he wants to be loved. Yeah. He wants to fight. He wants to fuck. He wants to do all this stuff. And I think in the Vale, he's just able to just be himself.
I never thought about the Vale being his actual home. Now that you say that, we're kind of how Ned has those fond memories of the Vale.
Right. Because imagine and we know that it's an interesting timeline of when Robert goes to the Vale and why he didn't stay in the Stormlands to be Lord. I've seen some things back and forth in the fandom about who sent him there, why did he go there, all that. I mean, I think obviously his parents die and he needs some training perhaps, but he really comes of age in the Vale. So would Robert at Storm's End, ruling Storm's End in the Stormlands, excuse me, would he be like King Robert? lazy, doesn't want to make decisions, all of that? Or would he be jovial and happy and like he is in The Veil, where he can just have a snowball fight with Ned and they throw oranges at each? I mean, all these things that Ned remembers.
And it really, I mean, Robert's Rebellion really kind of tainted a lot of people's
That's true.
life, pretty much. But it seems like what the Veil is to Ned and Robert was not like that for Lysa or Littlefinger, and like it seemed like it was kind of their curse, where it was their. I don't know if there's anything to that. I was gonna mention Catelyn in that, but she didn't really seem to have a opinion towards it, but
right.
But
I just think it's the fact that Maya remembers him as kind of this just big bearded laughing guy throwing her up. I mean, that's something that I don't even think she, if I remember correctly, she doesn't even really know who it was. I mean, that's just the image she remembers of the guy who came and threw her around.
Yeah, and that's it's obviously Robert.
Right. So I think the fourth thing that her introduction in the story in A Game of Thrones is perhaps, I don't think we necessarily see this directly for Catelyn, but we could with Sansa, though. So I think perhaps her introduction is to change our mindset about bastards. Bastards are, they unfairly are chastised in this society.
Mm-hmm.
They're born of lust. Well, so aren't a lot of true-born children. I mean, some men and women lust for each other and are married.
It's better to be born of lust than of loveless rape marriages or whatever is going on, in that world. So
I had to I had to mute my mic because I'm suffering from a week's cold, and the listeners out there would have probably ran off the road had they heard this croupy cough as I was laughing. And
I was wondering what happened. Yeah.
So, Catelyn definitely looks down on bastards, and she's got a bastard right there at her side in Winterfell that she really looks down on. Sansa doesn't even really think about Jon Snow, but I wonder, as their relationship, hers and Maya's, perhaps builds a little more in the Winds of Winter, perhaps her mindset could change a little bit, and especially if she begins to think more of Maya as Robert's child.
Yes, I do have a note about Maya and Sansa, and here, let me pull it up. So it's about, I think Sansa at one point has a thought about Maya and is it Michael?
Yes.
And about how she thinks Maya's too lowborn for him, and it's. Do you know this? Do you remember that part at all? Because I couldn't find it. Okay. So yeah, and it was just kind of funny how she kind of just she misread her, kind of like how I don't know how it's kind of like she misread her as a bastard, kind of how Littlefinger's misreading Sansa as Elaine Stone.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean that in the context of Mya Stone may not be as dumb or not dumb. She doesn't come across dumb, but she may not be as clueless to her parentage as everyone thinks she is. And she could be playing Sansa just like Sansa's playing Littlefinger at the game.
Yeah, she could be. You know,
I know Miranda Royce is doing it too, but
oh yeah, Miranda definitely.
But maybe Maya's doing it as well.
Yeah, I think that could very well be. I mean, I think at some point we got to step back and think, how many of these characters are important to the plot, or have their own machinations, and how many of them are just there?
True.
You know, Maya almost to me seems just like she's happy making that climb. She enjoys her time on the mules. She enjoys taking people up and down. She's in love with a boy who is probably not available to her because of his station in life, his nobility versus her being a bastard. But
you're right too, because
I don't think I wouldn't say I'm right. I'm just saying,
but that is so Robert, as like it is what, because kind of like the families, kind of the way George set them up, they kind of follow tropes. There's always a black sheep that kind of like, Stannis is the black sheep of the Baratheons. Ned is the black sheep of the Starks. There's always that black sheep, but
yeah,
Maya kind of fits that Baratheon mold.
Yeah.
Where because Robert wasn't dumb, but he wasn't like a schemer. That's not him. I think he would, if he was simple born, he would love to just climb
right.
That'd be him. He's an adventurer.
I like that. Yeah, he's an adventurer. He wants to, even says to Ned that he wishes he could just give up the crown and go to Essos and take up his sword, which again, I think we talked about it in an earlier episode. Yeah. I'd love to see that adventure.
Yes.
That would be great. Robert Baratheon just with his warhammer going across Essos. I'm there for that. So just real quick to finish up whether Robert's a good man or a bad man, and you can make arguments either way, but Robert wants to bring Maya to court in King's Landing at one point, and Cersei basically says, sure, bring her, but there are so many terrible things that happen to young women all the time. I mean, just how, you're over fucking your brother. Just let Robert have something. That just really pissed me off.
It is okay. So it is kind of like it gets confusing because yes, in the book it's terrible, but in the show she's more sympathetic to where she says, "I did love you at once."
Yes.
And then it kind of seems like that was never the case in the books.
She loves him in that one moment where he's muscled like a maiden's fantasy. He's got the crown on. He's got the flowing black hair. They're married. They have the wedding.
Are you sure this isn't Ned's thoughts?
Well, yeah. But I'm saying that that's what he looked like. But that moment, that night, I think Cersei says on their wedding night, he's drunk and he forces himself on her and whispers Lyanna's name, and that was it for Cersei.
Yeah.
So you're right. She never really loved him, but she did for like a few days or a few hours or something.
It's I mean, no excuses for him, but that's kind of an awful situation. Just being like,
it really is.
Grieving. I mean, Lyanna was never in love with him, but for some reason, I don't know. This is why feudal systems don't work. But
yeah. So I want to ask this question: Does she know that she's King Robert's daughter? Do you think she does?
I mean, I want to give her the benefit of the doubt and say yes. I mean, she she seems competent. Why would she be living in the Vale, working for a lord, remembering a large bearded man throwing her in the air, you know?
Yeah, let me read this quote.
It just seems like she's smart enough to figure that out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here's what she says to Sansa in A Feast for Crows. Mya shook her head. I remember a man throwing me in the air when I was very little. He stands as tall as the sky, and he throws me up so high it feels as though I'm flying. We're both laughing so much that I can hardly catch a breath. And finally, I laughed so hard I wet myself. But that only makes me laugh the louder. I was never afraid when he was throwing me. I knew that he would always be there to catch me. She pushed back her hair. Then one day he wasn't. Men come and go. They lie or die or leave you. A mountain is not a man, though, and a stone is a mountain's daughter. I trust my father, and I trust my mules. I won't fall. Now that's at once very sad, this memory of her father. It's also very sweet.
It is, yes.
This memory. And then it's just so terrible in the end that this little girl, just one day, that guy's no longer there and he never comes back and she doesn't know what happened. But that's why we say mountain's daughter, because she looks to the mountain as her life, her father, the assurance that she has in this world that she has a place.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, I just love that quote. I think that's a great quote.
Yeah,
it's just so sad.
It is sad, yeah.
But again, for as terrible as he is, Robert wasn't an evil man. He does some pretty bad things.
Yeah,
but more so, he lets these horrible manipulative people take over because he just doesn't give a damn. So even in this touching moment of Maya's memory of Robert, it's just sad that it's all kind of fallen apart for everyone, especially Robert, but more importantly for Mya.
It's kind of like he was sold a dream and not something he really wanted. And then but everyone convinced him he wanted. So yeah.
So Brett, you were making a point about if it seems like we're starting anew, it's because we had a power failure and we're restarting here.
By we, he means me.
By we. Well, the collective we, the royal we. Brett, you were making this great point. I think that Robert is one of those characters originally, maybe even as a young person, like one of those characters from a song, that the world is, this place to have adventures and to have fun and to fight and fuck and all that.
So you mean like Jon and Sansa?
yeah, Jon and Sansa and Bran and all these people that.
Yeah. Oh, even Bran. I never thought about. Yeah, I forgot about that.
They aren't. Hell, even Robb. Obviously, they're not weighed down by the blackness, the darkness of the world yet.
Yes, yeah, and I feel like the war kind of tainted everyone's perspective. Well, not everyone, but a lot of people. I mean, even Ned. I mean, his constant thoughts are about like those events. I mean, and Robert just kind of let it swallow him, and I think Cersei did too. I mean,
yeah, definitely.
And them being together is just like the worst combo of people. Yeah. Like that. I don't like. I just feel like he could have been a good person at one point, but I don't know. He just let. It's like he quit. I don't know. He just.
So I want to say to say two more things here about Maya's parents, and then I want to move on to the Winds of Winter and maybe what we think some of the things that she could be involved in the future. This is an interesting quote, and it's not an interesting quote because we already know some of this, but I want to point out something. So Maya says, "I promise, my lady, no harm will come to you. It would be my honor to take you up. I've made the dark climb 100 times. Michael says my father must have been a goat." First of all, goat, greatest of all time, Robert Baratheon. But notice she says "my lady."
Come on, you know it's Stannis.
Well, true. Oh boy,
I had to get the plug in.
Oh God. Now the king, the at King Stannis will probably come for us on Twitter.
Wait, why?
Because I said Robert.
Oh yeah.
So you had to correct me. So now he's coming for me.
Okay.
Anyways, so she says "my lady," and we know that. There's some theories that her mother is actually highborn, that she's not a commoner. She's not anyone who's lowborn. I think partially part of this is probably because Maya grows up around these nobles.
Yeah.
She's with House Royce. She's working up to the Eyrie all the time. So I think that's probably why she says "my lady" and not "my lady."
And you get Edric Storm, and like that's not a secret,
Right. Right. So I'm sure that most of the people, I'm sure most of the people in the Vale absolutely know that she's Robert Baratheon's daughter. But here's one more thing. We know that, speaking of Robert and Stannis and all of them, we know that imagery of Robert is of what? True still, right? Donald Noyes says true still. And that seems like there's a toughness, a hardness to it. It's not going to crack. It's not going to fail.
Yeah.
And I like that Mya Stone refers to her father as a mountain. So there's that, a mountain is strong. It's big. It's powerful. It would take a lot to knock down a mountain. And so that to me is just kind of an interesting parallel to the fact that Robert is described as steel. That in this regard, mountain is her father.
Speaking of that, the parallel that I think Emmett makes about how Robert says like no man could stand before me, and that's a constant thing with the mountain, the character.
Yeah.
No man could withstand him, and
yes.
Even like Robert saying that. And I think all of that is in the first book. So
yeah.
So there is some definite imagery there. So
yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the Winds of Winter and beyond. Let's talk about maybe a certain conspiring, manipulative person, Littlefinger, Peter Baelish. Do you think that he could have any plans for Mya Stone?
Yeah. This is why I think Mya Stone has a bigger part than maybe just being, a reference to Robert and his heirs, and just like proof, of that conspiracy with Cersei. She's still in a feast for crows, and she's still hanging around, and like after having conversation with Catelyn, she's having conversation with Sansa, and then you've got Miranda, Royce, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And Littlefinger's already warned Sansa about her, but wouldn't it make sense if Littlefinger had another informant, kind of to combat that and make sure Sansa's not slipping up, where you get Maya, So it could be a way of watching Miranda and testing Sansa at the same time, maybe, to
That's
see.
True.
Because I just don't buy. I think Sansa will be Littlefinger's downfall, but I think she's going to out Littlefinger. I don't think she's going to. I don't think Littlefinger's going to be like, oh, I'm totally manipulating her, so I'm going to just turn a blind eye to her. I don't think that's going to be the case because I don't think Littlefinger does that at all.
Right.
And
well, and I think I see Mya more as a pawn.
Yeah, well, yes, obviously, yes.
Right, for Littlefinger's game. You know, there's the theory that that Varys, I don't remember which Lannister it is, but some Lannister goes missing in King's Landing.
Tyrek.
Yeah, okay. Tyrek goes missing, and so people think that, well, Varys has deposited him somewhere, and he's going to use him to try and have an heir to the Westerlands for Fagon.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it could be something, and of course, Edric Storm's out there somewhere. Who knows what's going to happen with him? He could potentially be an heir to the Stormlands used by someone. So could Mya potentially by Littlefinger. But I think these people are kind of moving apart, and they're in completely different areas, and not all of them are all of a sudden going to emerge and say, well, I have this pawn who's actually the heir to the Stormlands. And, well, I have this pawn that's heir to the Stormlands. But
I think there's enough evidence to say, like, Tyrek, like, there was so much worry about people going missing, and then Lolly's getting, she went missing and got raped, and there's so much, like, there's so many other, like, like, what is it, in Fire and Blood, someone got pulled apart in a mob and someone got their head bashed in. Like, there's not really any evidence that, I mean, they never found his body, but it's like
he could be
Tyrek could have, like Tyrek could have easily just been, and I think that's just as likely as Varys snatching him. I don't know. Right. And why would Varys need to snatch him if he kind of played Tyrion to go to Essos? I don't know. Yeah. So it's just as likely he just died, and that's probably the case. Like, I was kind of on board until I just had that thought, and then I'm like, I don't know. They show all that evidence that, like, other people are getting smashed and killed. They even thought Sansa was dead at one point, and she would have been if it hadn't have been for the Hound.
Right.
So,
but I think you're right that Mya's going to play some role. She's been in service to Lord Nestor Royce, who's now been raised up to lordship by Littlefinger. He holds the Gates of the Moon, and that right now, the Lords Declarant and their army is kind of parked outside the Gates of the Moon as Littlefinger invites them up to the Eyrie. And also, it's interesting. Nestor Royce's family is descended from a Royce Stark line of heirs, which also kind of ties him back into potentially into Littlefinger's plans of the North and Sansa and all that. But I'm like you. I'm not sure how Mya will factor in. I think she does factor in. One of the ways that I would like to see her factor in is to begin to develop a close relationship with Sansa and kind of be like a Ned Robert companion.
So like John and Gendry in the show.
Yeah. I think that would be nice to see Sansa, get a friend. I mean, she needs some supporters around her, and I think she's going to get those, especially when she is revealed to be Sansa Stark. But not all of them are going to be, supporting her or standing beside her just because they like her. It's going to be because, oh, this is Sansa Stark. Now we have a way to take the North, or we have a way to get rid of Littlefinger or whatever.
Yes. I kind of hope Mya Stone isn't a pawn of Littlefinger's, and if she is, I hope she's like an accidental pawn. Well, not accidental, but like she's not
unwilling. She's unwilling.
Yeah, it's just kind of that, or she because it's really sad because Sansa really hadn't had a friend since like Jane Poole. And even still, she kind of looked down on
She
her.
did.
Like, I don't think they were really, like, she never really had a real friend that she cared about.
Right.
And, poor Jane Poole,
Yeah, really.
I think that's the most tragic storyline in the books, but
she's her father's killed. She's taken prisoner. She's made to serve Littlefinger's brothel. She's married off to Ramsay Bolton, and now she's lost like limbs and half of her nose in a snowstorm, trying to make it to Stannis' camp. Pretty tragic. Pretty tragic.
I did not know she lost her nose and
she loses part of her nose to frostbite. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fun times. So I want to end
more so. It makes it worse.
Whatever. Whatever. I want to end on this quote that Mya says to Catelyn in A Game of Thrones. I really like this quote, and I think it really sets up what's happening, especially in the Vale, in A Feast for Crows and A Dance with Dragons, but especially what's going to be happening in The Winds Winter. So Mya says, "My mother says that hundreds of years ago, this was where the snow began," Mya said. "It was always white above here, and the ice never melted." She shrugged. "I can't remember ever seeing snow this far down the mountain, but maybe it was that way once in the olden times." So first of all, Mya Stone's mother is still alive. Hope we get to meet her. But like we said, in A Feast for Crows and A Dance with Dragons in the Vale, and especially coming in The Winds of Winter, the lords and ladies are descending the mountain to escape the ice and snow. And little do they know that winter is coming, and the White Walkers are going to be descending on Westeros, and there's going to be a lot of ice and snow everywhere very soon.
Yes. And I did not catch that her mother was still alive, because it just kind of seems like her mother was dead. Like, what?
Right.
Because she's just hanging out.
Right.
Doing whatever. Like, so. Yeah, that's an interesting quote. I don't know. I don't really have anything to add to that, but
yeah. Well, Mya Stone's a great minor character. Hopefully, she'll have. Again, we hope she's not a willing participant in Littlefinger's plans, or if she is, we hope she wakes up and sees him for what he is. But I hope she develops a closer bond with Sansa and plays a bigger role in The Winds of Winter.
Yes. Did we do her justice in this episode? I feel like it hasn't been as crazy as the other ones, but
no, I think she's so, compared to the other minor characters. First of all, you have Orain Waters.
Yeah.
Who takes on such an important role for Cersei. He's dropped in.
Yeah.
And takes on this huge role in Cersei's arc and potentially beyond because of the Pirate King. Barbary Dustin, same way. She's dropped into the Northern storyline, and a lot of people think that she is just there for narrative exposition. In our episode, we kind of suggest that she's going to have some, machinations of her own, or she already has machinations of her own underway.
Yes.
And then you have Jason Mallister, who actually, if you kind of think of it, he's present for a lot of the things that happened to Robb Stark and Catelyn Stark, but he's kind of off page in a way. He's doing this. Mya Stone is similar. She's a much more minor character.
Yeah.
He's not in too many chapters, but to be fair, we're not in the Vale that long. We're in the Vale 2 or 3 chapters in A Game of Thrones, and then a few chapters in A Feast for Crows. So,
and I guess it doesn't help that
Storm of Swords and A Feast for Crows.
Yeah, and I guess it doesn't help that Littlefinger's plans are, who knows what exactly he's up to. So
right,
we don't know.
I think
we can't.
Yeah, I think Sansa's arc, I think, is definitely going to be very interesting, and I think it's one of those arcs that you just, there's a lot of great theories out there of where it's going, but it's not completely understood to me, and it's also, you're not sure how long it's going to take. Like, I think it's going to be a pretty big arc in the Winds of Winter,
and like it's not even like explained, like, well, not that it's not it's not explained, but like, what does Littlefinger even want? Like, if he doesn't want to be king, which I don't think he does, like, does he want to be like, I don't know, like the Rothschilds or something, where
right.
Off screen, but they have a lot of money and they kind of, I don't know, like, know, or, something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe I got a little too,
no, she's definitely going to be tied up in what happens in the Vale. We're just going to have to see whether she becomes more important, more crucial to the plot. Whether she remains as a background character or if she takes a more forward role. Yeah. Moving forward.
I do like her a lot. And I do hope to see her in more. She's a very interesting character.
Yeah.
And would be a good friend to Sansa.
She would. She definitely would.
And maybe she might tag along and meet Brienne. That'd be an interesting combo. Her and Brienne.
That would be. Yeah. Maybe she would get to eventually meet some of her brothers and sisters.
You know how that ends.
Half brothers and sisters.
You know how that ends in A Song of Ice and Fire. They hook up. Just like it almost happened to Gendry already. All right.
That's true. Oh, that's right. Yeah. Shit, I forgot about that.
So.
Wow. I was going to say something, but then I thought, no, just don't. Okay. All right. So, Mya Stone. Look more for Mountain's Daughter.
Yes.
All right. Why don't you take us out, Brett?
Okay. Thanks for listening, and thanks for joining us. Please find us and like us on Facebook and Instagram, and follow us on Twitter at Planetos Podcast. You can listen to us on iTunes, SoundCloud, Googleplay, YouTube, and any other platforms that you get your podcasts on. Email us at planetospodcast@gmail.com if you have any questions or ideas. The intro song is Jungo's Ballad, and that's by myself and Dylan Rivas. And the outro song is Smack by Bleach Garden. I'm Brett.
And I'm Travis. See you around Planetos.